It's not the question mark many people think it is.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. And the biggest question coming into fall camp, you could talk about the offensive line, but I think what most people are talking about is Oklahoma's first-year starter, Jackson Arnold. And I'm here to tell people, and we'll discuss this at length, I don't think it's as big of a question mark as people want to make it out to be. Jackson Arnold is going into his first year as a starter. He had a rough bowl game, but he also had a lot of really, really great moments in the bowl game against Arizona. The turnovers, you can't have them. Learning opportunity. You can't have 4 turnovers in a game. You can't have 3 interceptions and a fumble. It's just not what you're allowed to do as a quarterback at the Power 4 level with the Oklahoma Sooners. But as I watch Jackson Arnold play, dating back to non-conference play last year, to the Arizona game at the end of the season, the BYU game, I see a dude that has all the tools and all the intangibles to be great. When I took over Locked On Sooners back in September of 2020, we had another first-year starting quarterback taking the reins in Spencer Rattler. Let me just tell you, I feel much more comfortable with Jackson Arnold going into this season than I did with Spencer Rattler that season. We didn't see the high-flying, high-octane offense under Spencer Rattler's leadership like I think we're about to see under Jackson Arnold. We didn't see a game quite like what we saw against Arizona at the end of that last season when, again, it was just his first start, 4 weeks of prep time. Now he's got 8 months of prep time to get ready for this season. And I think we're going to see a much, much better version of Jackson Arnold. And it's not the question mark that people are making it out to be, Jay.
No, I'm in the same boat. See, the funny thing about Jackson Arnold and in the comparison to Spencer Rattler, I love that you threw that out there. It feels like this regime is focused on playing the game that's best for Jackson Arnold. Like you said, we saw some great stuff out of him against Arizona, and we also saw some true freshman stuff out of him against Arizona, which is kind of something you expect your first start. He looked good, and that Arizona team was not a bad team, right? That was actually a really good up-and-coming team. Heck, they won 10 games on the season, right? Their victory on us.
Washington.
Exactly. Our game was their 10th win of the season. They finished with 10 wins, 10-3. We finished 10-3. But for Jackson Arnold going into next season, I feel like this regime is going to set him up more for success in comparison to Rattler. I felt like the way that Riley tried to use Spencer, they tried to make him a scrambling quarterback when he's a pure pocket passer. That's not his game, right? Caleb Williams is a scrambler who needs to move around and make things happen. Spencer's one, you give him time, he's going to pick you apart. We saw that at South Carolina when he was having his best game. So I don't think that Jackson's going to be the question this year because it feels like the way that Littrell does it, we know that he leverages the quarterback's strength and uses that as his ability to be good. Now, Seth and Bill Beatonbow can work closely together again for the second time since they did back at Arizona, coincidentally the team we lost to. They're going to be able to put something together and a true game plan for what Jackson Arnold can do. And with that offensive line that's younger, that's inexperienced. We're not going to say younger. They're inexperienced together as far as a unit because snap-wise, everybody on that offensive line that's potentially going to start has over 300 snaps to their career. So they've played. But for Jackson, the key thing is going to be he is not thinking he needs to do everything himself. This team is not built for him to have to be, the guy that carries the load all the time. And we've talked about this before. That's the beauty and the confidence we have as Sooner fans is it feels like it's going to be more of a complete team with actually not a slight, but a majority lean towards 60-40 that the defense does more work than the offense.
Even if it's an even split, it takes so much pressure off of your quarterback.
It does.
Spencer Rattler came into his first season coming out of the LSU game where the Tigers just beat the brakes off that Oklahoma defense. And honestly, the defenses that Oklahoma had in 2020 and 2021 might have been the best that they ever were under Lincoln Riley, with Nick Bonito and that 2021 had Ronnie Perkins. I mean, there were some really good defenders on those units, but Spencer Rattler just never quite clicked at Oklahoma, right, which is why he ended up getting benched. And obviously the turnovers were a big factor in that Texas game. But I also think that there was just a bit of a disconnect between who he was supposed to be as the leader and kind of who he turned out to be, and who I think Jackson Arnold is, which is a much more humble, a guy that's just about the work. And this is not to say that Spencer Rattler didn't work, but you just never got the same vibe out of him. The cool, calm, collected quarterback ready to lead the way. And this is not to, take shots at Spencer. It's just the difference, I think, going into this season versus that season is I feel much more comfortable and much more confident in what Jackson Arnold's going to be able to do. One, because I've gotten to see him play a little bit more than what we saw Spencer Rattler play in 2019. But I just think the mental aspect of this, the kind of playing at the highest level in Texas 6A football, going in under the gun against BYU in a hostile environment, all of that sets the stage for him to have an offseason where he can grow and also learn from some of the things that didn't go well, and also build a better rapport with Seth Littrell, who's his play caller. Again, they only had a month together to figure out what's going to work best in this offense. Well, now they've had a whole offseason. He's had a whole offseason to work with Nick Anderson and Deion Burks and Jaden Gibson, until Jalil Farouk got banged up, to work with Jalil Farouk. Before that, he was working mostly with those second team wide receivers, primarily Jaden Gibson. And that's why you saw when, early in the season, Jaden Gibson and Nick Anderson thriving when Jackson Arnold was in at quarterback. Remember the 11 for 11 game against Tulsa? Like I do.
Yep.
So we want to talk about the turnovers. Okay. But let's also talk about the 11-11 game. And those were not like dink and dunk passes. No, he was bombing it out. And that's the guy that we're going to see, I think, to a better degree. Now he's not going to go perfect every single game, and he might not do it any game, but I think what we're going to see is a more accurate passer, a more confident passer, someone who's going to pull the trigger when he sees it. He's not going to be delayed like that one interception against Arizona along the sideline where he just waited way too long. I think everybody and their mom, Jackson Arnold's mom, was probably wondering why he threw that ball, and he knew it came back to bite him. So I sit here fully confident in what Oklahoma is going to be getting out of Jackson Arnold this season, and it's not going to be the problem that the SEC fans are trying to make it out to be. Analysts like Greg McElroy are trying to make it out to be. It's going to be one of Oklahoma's strengths.
No, I'm glad you brought that up too, because you have to also take in consideration everything he's done in his career, right? The Arizona State game, killed it, right? 114 yards, 11, like I said, 11, a touchdown. He was throwing it deep the entire game, right? Tulsa, he went out there, was 2 for 4. BYU, he came at the end of in the second half and basically sealed the win as he changed the play at the line of scrimmage. That's stuff to consider about what he's doing. And so going into Arizona, we got to remember Oklahoma was up 24-13 and they were in the red zone. If Arizona doesn't return that fumble, they don't return that fumble for a touchdown, I don't think that second interception or that third interception that Jackson Arnold throws or that fumble he had later in the game happens, because you're up 31-13 at that point. You are basically owning this game. So the unfortunate mistakes that were outside his control, I don't believe we'll have to worry about that now because of what this defense is going to come in and play with. So I'm excited to see what he looks like going in. These first 3 games are going to be fun. Don't get it twisted. We're going to have a blast in those games. We're going to show out. We're returning all those skills guys, right? I mean, remember, Solchek had over 100 yards rushing. That Arizona game, Oklahoma was wearing them out. 560-plus yards to 380 yards in the game. And we could have locked it down more, but mistakes, of course, bite you in the butt when you give up fumbles for touchdowns. So I don't think that that's going to be a problem going forward. I think that the turnover ratio will probably maintain a medium to high ratio, especially because Zach Alley is very aggressive. But yeah, no, your point is perfect that we've seen Jackson Arnold play well. We've seen him look comfortable. And when he's comfortable and the team is doing the things that they need to do to make sure that he's comfortable, oh yeah, we're good. And I don't think that any SEC team is going to make him uncomfortable enough to truly ruin his game. That defense is what's going to be able to set the tone. And I love that.
Yeah, if we're going to talk about the things Jackson Arnold didn't do well in that Arizona game, let's make sure we talk about the things he did do well. Also, let's apply the same first-year starter logic to Nico Iamaleava, who's getting all kinds of love and affection from everywhere across the country, but nobody's questioning whether or not he's going to be ready for the SEC.
Exactly.
Just saying here on Locked On Sooners. And coming up next, we're going to talk about what Oklahoma's offensive identity is going to be. Later, we're going to discuss which freshmen are going to have the opportunity to shine in non-conference play the first 3 games of the season. Coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. Have you been looking for tickets to a comedy show, the theater, concerts, whatever it is? Go to the Game Time app, download it in your app store, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege, and you can get $20 off your first purchase. Inside the app, you can see exactly what you're going to be looking at from your seat. That's the best place to check it out. You won't have to worry about obstructed views. You won't have to worry about poor eyesight or poor lines of sight because you checked it out in the Game Time app. Again, use promo code LOCKEDONCollege to get $20 off your first purchase. They are the best place to get the last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Today's episode is also brought to you by Factor. It's that time of year where life just starts getting fast again. The summer is starting to wind down. School is going to be starting in a couple weeks for a lot of you. I know it is for us. We're already getting the backpacks and the water bottles ready for our kids. Getting ready to go to school. But hey, you run out of time for meal prep. You don't know exactly what your weekly schedule is going to be like, especially with all the extracurriculars coming up. Well, go check out Factor. They've got you set up with great, healthy, chef-crafted meals that have options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto as well. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, transporting kids from soccer practice to tumbling to taekwondo, Factor's got you ready to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. They've got 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from. Treat yourself to restaurant quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. That sounds delicious. Cannot wait to get that from Factor. So head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active over at Factor. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So with a new offensive play caller, a new quarterback, and a new offensive line, a new slot wide receiver, what is this Oklahoma Sooners offense going to look like, Jay, when we roll into 2024?
Toughness, right? We heard that speech from Brent Venables numerous times. That's the one thing that he says over and over. Toughness is the most important thing. We're going into the SEC, so toughness is going to be critical going there. So I feel like we're going to be a pound the ball type of team, right? You're going to see Jackson Arnold do his thing at quarterback. They're going to leverage the fact that he is not only very athletic and he can fast. He's not sneaky fast or deceptively fast. He's fast. He can scoot. You're going to see him moving around, but you're also going to see that ball handed to those running backs. And so for me, the question is going to be, what running backs are the ones going to be taking over? We know Sawchuk's basically got that number one locked down, but there's going to be a number two. I feel like we're going to have 2 running backs in the 800-yard range easily. We may have 3. I don't know if we hit 1,000 yards this year. That's been my question, but what is that running back room going to look like? Who's going to be the one next to Sawchuk that's going to rack up 800, if things go great, 1,000 yards apiece? That's where I'm trying to figure out what that identity looks like there.
I mean, I think Gavin Sawchuk could very well cross the century mark. I mean, if you extrapolate his final 5 games of the season and project that over 12 games, that's a 1,400-yard season.
It's true.
I mean, he was on fire over the final 5 games of the season and still wasn't even really getting a bunch of carries. I mean, he was averaging like 14, 15 carries a game, and he was just explosive because of his breakaway percentage was one of the highest in college football. I mean, just behind Ollie Gordon, actually, in looking at runs of 15 yards or more, and how much his yardage came from that. So I expect we're going to see Gavin Sawchuk have a great start to the season. Will he cross 100 yards in the first 3 games against, Temple and Tulane and Houston? Maybe, maybe not, because you might not need him to carry the ball 15 times in those games to win those games. But as you get into the season, into the heart of the season, you're going to rely upon him a whole lot more, especially when you go on the road to Auburn in the Red River Showdown. He's going to get a lot more work than he did last year. When you play teams like Ole Miss and you maybe want to slow the thing down a little bit, you're going to rely on that running game a whole lot more. And I do think Gavin Sawchuk is set to have his first 1,000-yard season as a collegiate back. But I think you're right. Whoever that RB2 is going to be an impactful player, and you need to figure that out because you're going to want to run the ball as this defense takes on kind of the identity of this team and the leadership of this team. What does that mean? Okay, you play strong defense, you run the football, and you kind of take the air out of the ball and make teams have to play catch up. And if Oklahoma's offense is able to get leads, it's going to put a lot of pressure on opposing offenses. There are some good offenses like a Jackson Dart and a Jalen Milroe and Texas and Quinn Ewers, but are there going to be enough offenses able to play from behind? I think the Oklahoma Sooners have an offense that's able to play from behind because of the explosiveness they have at wide receiver. But I think because of what they've got at running back and what I think they're going to have along the offensive line, they're also going to be able to play with a lead as well, pretty well. So it's going to be very interesting because I think they're going to be able to take a very balanced approach, passing and running. But I think they're going to try to establish a physical mindset early on and get those guys up front, setting the tone for this team. They don't want to be running jet sweeps on 3rd and 1 to try and pick up a first down. No,
we're not in the middle.
Or on 4th and goal from the 1, trying to run a wide receiver screen out to Xavier Worthy to try and get in the end zone. No, they want to be able to punch it in from 1st and goal at the 1. They don't want to be needing 4 downs to get in the end zone. So I think Brent Venables, Seth Littrell, Joe John Finley, Bill Bedenbaugh are going to have a pretty clear vision for this team. Yeah. Do they want to air it out? They want to take advantage of Jackson Arnold's elite arm talent, 100%. But they want to establish a physical mindset for this team and let the SEC know that they're not going to be pushed around.
That's the good thing, too, is, as you mentioned, you get that running game established and that toughness going up the middle. That opens up the wide receivers anyway, right? It's going to open up the middle of the field to where you can get the ball to a Deion Burks and he can play in space. You can get the ball to a Nick Anderson running up the sideline. You can get the ball up to Jaden Gibson if he wants to catch it across the middle or he wants to catch it deep and running up the sidelines as well, right? Any combination of the wide receiver room, you'll be able to do that with a running back room that is setting the tone. And so I do feel like Seth Littrell is going to run the ball down the throat. You have a nice plethora of running backs, right? And as you talked about with Gavin Sawchuk, his numbers would have equated out to 140 yards if it was all season. He got healthy right after that Texas game, and you saw it. Once he was healthy, he's back to what you needed him to be. Now we need to see if Javante Barnes is as healthy as well. And then you can mix in Emeka Megwa, who I'm hearing really good reports on him right now. He could potentially be someone that's going to be, a little bit of a pound the ground running back, maybe 8 to 10 carries a game type dude as he's still trying to get healthy from the multiple knee surgeries. But then Caleb Hicks as well. You get him out in space. He's shown that the establishment of the run game is going to be critical. And I think to add to that toughness, to wrap it up, is going to those tight ends, right? We talked about how the tight end room has got to step up. I think Seth Littrell is going to put them to work. The question is, which one of those tight ends is the one that's going to step up and not only block, but catch that ball in the flat or across the middle?
Right. So much of this game is won at the line of scrimmage. As much as the air raid is taking over college football, it still comes back to the line of scrimmage. It still comes back to controlling time of possession and establishing the run. Now, I can talk at length about what the analytics show, but just from a demeanor standpoint, I mean, because the numbers, you could talk about the numbers, but just a demeanor, an attitude, and a mindset. If you establish the run and you establish physical superiority at the line of scrimmage, it takes everything else away. It takes all the pressure off of your quarterback, and it makes his life a whole lot easier. And it's going to be a give and take situation too, because I think there are going to be games where Oklahoma really pressures defensive backfields to the extent that they're going to have to drop extra people into coverage, which is going to open up so much for Gavin Sawchuk in the draw game. It's going to open up so much in the counter game. But I think with a guy like Branson Hickman at center, with Fabechi Weewood at right guard, you're going to have a really nice little interior combination to run trap plays, to run dives. That's going to create some really easy yardage for this team, because you want to get the easy yards where you can. Sometimes it's so difficult to move the ball. If you can pick up 5 yards on first down just by running a simple dive play, man, that's so huge. And it puts your team on good footing moving forward. And honestly, it gives you a better chance to score. So it's going to be exciting to see how Seth Littrell and this offense create and establish an identity in 2024. Oklahoma's got an opportunity to see some freshmen in the first 3 games of the season, with games against Temple, against Tulane, and Houston. Who will step up and shine? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whatever you into, speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the price you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, excluding supply. eBay Guarantee Fit only available to U.S. customers.
So, Jay, in the first 3 games of the season, and then a little bit later in the year against Maine, the Oklahoma Sooners are going to get an opportunity to deploy some of their true freshmen who might be a little bit buried on the depth chart. We just talked about running back and the depth that it has, that we may not get to see a Taylor Tatum for an extended period of time, except maybe in non-conference, or an Xavier Robinson. Who are a few guys that you're looking at as true freshmen, or maybe guys that are a little bit lower on the depth chart, that you think will have an opportunity to make a statement in those first 3 games of the season?
Yeah, I do expect us to rotate some of the young players in, just because it's good to have those bodies getting adjusted to the college game at the same time. Preparation for the SEC gauntlet of schedule, as everyone keeps reminding us, the SEC schedule is going to be so tough. It's good to have those guys prepared for it. But to be honest, when I'm looking at this, man, Daniel Okoye is one. We talked about him. ESPN had him as a list as a sleeper coming into the season. But Okoye comes in here 6'4", 6'5", legitimately in that size, at around 250 to 260 pounds, and he runs like a 4.5 40. So imagine that coming off the edge, chasing your quarterback. His favorite thing to do is blitz. He wants to go after the quarterback. He wants to hit people. He enjoys the violence of college football. And so he's one of those freshmen that I think is going to end up having a borderline instant impact, because I think that he's going to end up playing in those early games, because he's one that we need to make sure that we're tuning him up perfectly in preparation for the season. You know, you add him with like a David Stone, Jaden Jackson, one of your favorites, and then Reggie Powers, right? I think Reggie Powers at safety is one that we'll probably see rotating around with Robert Spears-Jennings at the free, or potentially at the strong spot, and moving like Peyton Bowen to the free spot so that he can just kind of be like a free agent floating around doing his thing. There's a good chance those 3 dudes are the ones that really jump out to me as ones that we are most likely going to have to find a way to get them on the field, because there's a chance they can be that impactful, especially early in the season.
I know all eyes are going to be on David Stone. You just mentioned him. I think that's going to be the one that everybody's kind of clamoring to see, because he's the 5-star defensive tackle. He's one of the highest rated prospects Oklahoma's landed in the last decade on the defensive side of the ball. And I mean, the hype is real. I mean, the dude is just good. He's a really, really good football player, and he's got the the grind mentality, the work ethic mentality, that he wants to get better every single time he's out on the field. He's not expecting things to come easy to him. He's trying to go improve his craft every day. So I think a lot of people are going to be excited to see him in non-conference, to see if he can earn a spot and earn a role as a rotational defensive tackle later on the season, because you need that depth. With the 12-game schedule and potentially the playoffs, you're going to need good depth, and you need your true freshman to step up. I love that you mentioned Reggie Powers, another fan favorite here on Locked On Sooners, a dude that just physically he's ready. I mean, he is physically ready to go play the game of college football. Now, whether he's going to be mentally ready, we'll see, but I don't anticipate that being much of an issue. Brandon Hall had a guy like Peyton Bowen ready as a true freshman to come in and take significant snaps for the Sooners and was a playmaker for that team. And so I expect that safety room with the leadership of Billy Bowman and Robert Spears-Jennings to have these younger safeties ready to go. Other freshmen, man, let's look at the offensive side of the ball. Got to see some Davin Mitchell. Got to. As much as like offensive line might be a question, tight end is still the biggest question mark in my mind because I just don't know what we're going to get. But you throw a dude like Davin Mitchell out there, and there's a good chance you could have the next great Oklahoma tight end.
Oh, yeah. And the best part about Von Mitchell is that he is supposed to be in the 25 class, right? So you got a really young, raw dude who's already at size, right? He's already a legitimate 250 as a 17-year-old, which is pretty absurd to imagine that he was able to reclassify and come into 24 class when he's supposed to be entering his senior year in high school. As long as he, just like you mentioned with the defenders, they figure out the scheme, which is usually the biggest struggle of a freshman. You get them out there, you can let them run around all they want to, but if they don't know the scheme, there's a great chance that they're going to become more of a liability. Example for that, as talented as he is, Caleb Downs was a very big-time liability for Alabama early in the season, and it was only because he was young. You can trick freshmen. Freshmen are very easy to trick. They're not used to the game. They're not used to the speed. And it's not that they can't handle it. It's just there's great easy ways to, because they don't have the experience to remember that, oh, don't do this when they do that, because they're on attack mode. And so you get a Von Mitchell, you get him, body wise ready, you get him scheme wise ready. Yeah, he's one freshman that could really stand out on that offense, because as you mentioned, tight end is one of those positions where we have so many questions, right? I think you add with Von Mitchell, probably on the offensive line, you can look at a Eugene Brooks or a Eddie Pierre-Louis. Those are two guards that to me could end up rotating in a little bit earlier than expected and really pushing people around. And if you want to add one more to that line, Isaiah Autry, he's already at the size you want. I mean, he's sitting at about 6'8", roughly 310 pounds, 315 pounds. He's a big dude already. And he's just now 18 years old. He came in at maybe 300. I think he came in at like 290. And he's already added about 20 pounds of good weight to his body. Eddie Pierre-Louis, Lewis, he actually dropped from 330, which was on his recruiting sites, to like just over 300 pounds. So he dropped a lot of bad weight. They're going to bulk him up. Man, there's a good chance you rotate those freshmen in on the line just to test them out against like a Temple, test them out against Houston or Tulane. There's a good chance they're ready to play some meaningful snaps late in the season, especially if somebody does get injured.
Yeah, and I could also see a guy like Taylor Tatum, Zion Raggins in return duties, being able to make big plays and create opportunities for themselves in conference play. It's going to be fascinating to see. I think if you want to go back to the defensive side of the ball, we've talked about, the safeties, we've talked about the defensive line, but maybe a Jeremiah Newcomb, another highly sought after 4-star prospect that Jay Valai was able to land. He was the first commitment in the 2024 recruiting class. And I mean, I think he's going to be an impactful player at some point. Can he get some snaps in that non-conference season to maybe kind of show some stuff? Who knows exactly how much the freshman will play, because again, the depth chart is so much better going into 2024 than it was going into 2022, going into 2023, that you don't have to use your freshmen. You don't have to burn their red shirts, but you want to get some tape on these guys. Let them get them some experience, get their feet wet a little bit, and just see what they're able to do and learn from those things.
Yeah, it's going to be all about figuring out that scheme early. And if they get that scheme down, man, it's going to be a blast watching young players. So these first three games, again, Sooner fans, have fun. Enjoy being in the SEC. Enjoy this new season. Enjoy this new quarterback because you get to keep him for at least one more season. If he does live up to expectations, we only got him this season and next season. So you better enjoy him now and let him go out there and show up like you want to. But these freshmen, there's a good chance we're going to see a lot of them just get some burn throughout these first three games as tune-ups because you're going to want to have all your bodies prepared for those SEC games.
And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms. Again, shout out to all the everydayers tuning in every single day with us here on Locked On Sooners. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is you like to do your social media activities at Locked On Sooners. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports, myself at John 9 Williams. And for your second listen of the day, go check out the Locked On College Football podcast with our guy Spencer McLaughlin. He gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron with discussion on the upcoming season and the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL, new college football expanded playoffs, and more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, thank you for joining us here on Locked On Sooners. For Jay, I'm John. We'll catch you next time. Boomer.
Sooner.